All right, and welcome to the Left Wing. I'm John Cooper, and I'm on the left side of the screen today, which means TJ is not here. Replacing me on the right side of the screen is, I think you are at this point, our most recurring guest, Natalie Bensavenga. Natalie, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing terribly. How are you doing?
Exactly. I'm telling you, Natalie, that we got here last week,
Yeah.
and it was either Zoran had won that week or it was 2 weeks ago he won. I'm forgetting
hmm
at this
hmm
point.
hmm
But it was a very happy day. I was looking forward all day to getting on the show and talking, and it was the opposite today. I've been dreading doing this
Me
all
too.
day. And there's going to be some, just shit to get off the chest, but damn, it's just crushingly, not that we didn't know this was coming. This was always going to happen, but now that it's here, it's hard. It's one of those days just hard to get up, and the days will get better, but today it's not one of them.
Yeah, I don't, I honestly, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. I don't know if the days are going to get better because when we look at what they're going to be doing with this bill, my hope, John, I was still holding out hope, after Murkowski caved,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that could have just ended it yesterday. But after that happened, I thought, okay, there's still going to be infighting on this end with reconciliation. They still need to get so many votes. It seemed like there were plenty of Republicans that were on the fence in the House. And then when I don't know if you saw this, Trump apparently was offering up some signed merch and offering t-shirts from his pro shop that were signed. And apparently this was the thing that got these Republicans back on board. And it ended up being only two that joined the Democrats to oppose this disaster of a bill. And all I kept thinking all day was how little it took to sell out the American people. And I've just had this sinking, sick feeling in the pit of my stomach since they voted, because just knowing that was something that they were able to use to sweeten the deal, I just thought, my God, how parochial, how pathetic, how lame can you people be that you were just willing to rip healthcare from millions of people so you could get a Trump t-shirt signed. I have no words, John. I have no words.
I actually it's so unbelievable
Yeah.
that would be the case. It feels like a smokescreen sort of thing to me. I just, not that I have a very high opinion of congressional Republicans. Don't get me
Good,
wrong,
because you
Natalie.
shouldn't.
But it just seems odd if signed merch was the thing to get you over the hump.
Dude.
Why were you not already on board in the first place?
Well,
That just seems so. The incentives don't even make sense to me. It makes more sense that something else happened, and that's what they're saying happened.
maybe,
And if what they're saying happened is that
maybe,
embarrassing, I can't
I mean,
imagine what really happened.
I don't know anymore. I used to think people were better than they are. That was me 12 hours ago. I think people are worse now than I ever thought. I really, in my heart of hearts, I kept saying to myself, at the end of the day, they are not going to vote to rip Medicaid and SNAP. They are not going to vote to let children go hungry. And now there have been tweets that have been removed online that showed them cheering when this passed. I just, I think the worst of us are running the show now. And I know this, but I think now I really know this with a capital K. And if this doesn't radicalize people, I don't know what will.
3 capital K's, if you ask me. I don't. So when I said days will get better,
Yeah.
I did not mean that the country, everything is going to get better. I meant that our will to fight
Yeah.
is going to get better. My
That's,
will,
mm-hmm.
I wanted to make a TikTok today and I just couldn't do it. I just had zero drive or energy. And you know what? It's okay. It's going to be a lot of people on our side of the aisle today that are feeling exactly like this, where it just feels like, God, what do you even do? And I've had probably a dozen days like this since the election, and We'll have dozens more.
Yeah.
One thing to just point out, and there's going to be a lot of doom and gloom on this show today. Nothing's ever over. Nothing ever ends. There is always a tomorrow. There is always a next step. And oh my God, things can get really bad here. But there was a day after tomorrow in Nazi Germany. You just got to keep moving forward. You just got to keep fighting. And, you know, you mentioned the Medicaid thing. I'm always what's the silver lining? What's the reason for optimism here? So the Medicare and Medicaid cuts, they don't go into effect until I believe 2027.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a way to stop it, Natalie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's to get a filibuster proof, or not filibuster proof, a 66% majority in the Senate and enough people in the House to impeach. And I'm not saying it's
no, it's possible. I think it's
not likely, but it's something we need to be gunning for.
Nothing's impossible, and I agree with your sentiments, and I'm right there with you. But I feel like today needs to be a day to give space to grieve, because here's what the left always does: we gloss and we keep it moving. And I think we need to sit with this. We have to sit with this, because the we'll pick ourselves up and keep going energy is so important, but you burn yourself out when you do not allow yourself to feel your feelings. And I don't mean that in a woo-woo way. It's true. It's true. And right now I'm feeling angry and I'm feeling alone and I'm feeling frustrated. And I know that I am not alone in this. And I know you are probably feeling those things, or maybe you might label them a little differently. But right now, too, I think while we, of course, need to talk about the fight ahead, I think we need to acknowledge that we are allowed to be upset and hurt and grieving. Because when I've gone on Facebook, I posted a couple of times today, the Republican commentary on my posts is so disgusting. They are literally walking off a cliff, and they're laughing on their way to the cliff, and they don't even know, John. They don't, like, we are having different experiences right now on the right and the left. And I think, yes, tomorrow we fight, but today I think we need to sit with this feeling, that's just where I'm at.
I remember there was an episode, it was immediately after the first State of the Union. And I'll caveat this every time I say it. I know it wasn't an official State of the Union, blah, blah. It was a State of the Union, okay? And I was morose. And TJ was less so. And TJ's kind of like, oh, it's not really, it's just this, like, there's nothing that happened, it's just a TV show, basically. And what really got to me, what really just got inside past my defenses, was just watching sitting congressmen laugh and cheer over an outright denial of reality.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many times that you just watched them stand and clap when Trump said something just easily verifiably incorrect.
Yeah.
Not in this, again, politicians lie all the time.
Sure.
I'm not sitting here and saying that, and even during the State of the Union, politics, you can go back to Biden's State of the Unions, you'll be able to point out tons of lies, right? And you will be able to see Democrats still cheering them on. But it was the just utter rejection of reality, not embellishments, not underplaying certain bad things, just complete red is blue, water's solid, and the sky is down. It was that kind of stuff. And I remember just being like, wow, if it's this bought in, what do we have left?
Yeah.
And the answer is and always was nothing. I mean, there was debate around this bill, whether it would happen or not. Before it passed the House, I was like, hey, maybe it won't. The Freedom Caucus people are crazy enough to tank this. Nah. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot of people. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And I can't help but agree with you. It is important to sit with this, and it's not like the effects are going to happen tomorrow.
No.
We're still going to get hit by this again and again and again and again over the next several years.
Yeah.
And I really, besides what I said earlier, hey, we just got to solve this in 2026. There's really nothing to do until then other than
Right.
build support, build momentum, build movements. But in order to do that, you got to make sure you're still, processing and taking care of yourself and making sure that you have the energy to get up tomorrow and fight or the next day or whenever you can, because it's just going to get harder from here on out.
Yeah, I think we have and I appreciate everything that you shared. And I think Colby had a question for you. He said, to clarify, John, when you say impeach, do you mean impeachment or removal from office? What did you mean exactly?
I mean removal from office. Like that to me, that has been,
it's elusive.
if we're gonna like count all of the ways this ends, right? There's still the most likely thing, Trump leaves office after his 4-year term,
right?
And then there's an election, and we put the way we end this as Democrats is winning that election and getting someone in there, right? But I think that the next most likely option is Trump gets impeached after 2026. It all depends on how badly things go between now and then. Because Natalie, you're right. These are lemmings jumping off a cliff.
Yeah.
Eventually, enough of them are going to fall off the cliff. Like, eventually, things are going to get so bad that it can no longer be denied.
Yeah.
On a personal level, it already has happened to many, many Republicans. We have seen them say they regret their vote for Trump, yada, yada, yada. It needs to happen to so many people. It needs to happen also to so many politically unengaged people to make them engaged. That's maybe even the more important and more feasible thing in order to get a supermajority in both chambers and remove Donald Trump from office and tell JD Vance, you're going to be a lame duck president for the next 2 years, and you're going to do what we say, or else we're going to make the Speaker of the House president. It's not. That needs to be, I think, the driving demand of 2026. From now until then, there should be no bar of success lower than that, because if we get all the way to 2028, again, as much as I said that's the most likely scenario, there's a lot of other possible scenarios that I don't even want to fathom.
I'm with you. And, I think for me, what's been helping me, John, through all of this, like you said, we've had some bad days, right? In the last several months, this being the worst, but certainly really bad days leading up to this, especially with the Supreme Court being bought and paid for by this administration as well. And what always gets me is thinking about what is on the other side of this. Because I remember my grandmother, who obviously grew up, during the Great Depression, and my grandfather fought in World War II and was part of liberating some of the concentration camps in Europe. And I used to ask my gram, how did you get through this? Like this must have just been one of the worst times in history. I mean, how did you survive like just the poverty and the mental anguish and all of your friends dying in war? And like, how did you deal with that? And she used to just say to me, the pendulum swings this way, but it always swings back. And I've really been holding on to that lately as like a visualization of, like, to your point, like, yeah, things are going to get really bad and they're continuing to move in this way, but there will be a tipping point and it will swing. And the further we go, I think the momentum will carry us that much further the other direction. And if the Democrats have any sense at all, they'll listen to what Governor Walz said when he was interviewed a few months ago, when he was basically like, look, none of us are going to win any more races until we promise and deliver on universal health care. And like, there was this moment where I was like, oh my God, he actually said the quiet part out loud. Like, this isn't about we're not Trump, vote for us, because that didn't work. It's about what are we going to do for the American people to win back their vote and their trust. And it's about passing policies that are actually going to improve our lives. And so I'm hoping that that's the kind of momentum that's going to swing us back into a direction where more of us have an opportunity to not just survive, but actually maybe thrive. Because right now, I think a lot of people, and we can expect this, are going to get into a real survival mode. And what we need to be doing in that moment is reminding ourselves to think bigger than just our own survival, but instead, how do we make the collective thrive? And that's going to be through massive policy change that creates social supports, because we know the United States has next to none of those, and we're about to have even less.
So we're going to get to a bunch of the specific parts of this bill that are bad and why they're bad. But I want to spend some time on what you just said, because I do agree with that sentiment. It's something that I mentioned. We're celebratory wins are on one. That is part of what made me so excited with that news, is that, oh shit, there's going to be a point where this pendulum swings back. I don't know when that's going to be exactly. I hope
we'll be alive for it.
It's sooner rather than later. I hope that we'll be alive for it. Correct, Natalie. But it's difficult to imagine with the people currently running the Democratic Party. I think that is part of what made me so morose today.
Yeah.
It's not just that you have this bill being passed. It's not just that the Republicans have won. It's that in terms of what I see in front of me, I don't see the direction that pendulum's going to go regardless, because we still have this leadership that is set in their ways, their goal. Like what I said, Natalie, earlier about how the bar for success should be no lower than the removal of Donald Trump from office.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like our leaders at this moment have the stomach for that fight. It seems like they would like the pendulum to swing back to where it was during the Biden administration.
Totally.
And that is such a...
get us like here, though. We need to like go this way.
Well, that's why
it really needs to swing here, people. Yeah.
And it couldn't be more obvious. Like, I just have to say, like, it couldn't be more obvious that that's what people want. The Democratic Party rank and file members despise Democratic Party leadership. And just sitting yesterday with Chuck Schumer, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, I think it was the day before, Chuck Schumer gloating about changing the name of the bill, like that fucking matters. And then Hakeem Jeffries doing his stump speech for 8 hours, breaking the record today of the House floor speech. Like, it was just, I don't want to say like it was bad of him to do that. It's fine of him to do that. I'm not like upset at him for doing that, but it was just like, bro, this ain't it. Like, you guys are so off on what this is. I want people who are coming into Congress armed for this vote and putting that sort of face to this. And that is not what we got. And it's very, it's a struggle to see all the steps on the path to getting that pendulum swung far enough that I'm going to feel like any of this might have been worth it. You know what I mean, Natalie? And just because I can't see the steps in between here and our destination doesn't mean that we can't get there or that we can't take steps forward. But goddamn, today feels like a beyond the horizon.
And that's what my grandmother used to say. She said, you just have to have faith, because you are blind to the steps. We don't know the process of getting it to do this. All we have to do and all we can do is imagine it where we want it to be and go there and work backwards. Because I agree with you, it feels insurmountable. And to Colby's point, I think a good way of working backwards and seeing, well, what would it look like for that pendulum to go where we want it to go, John? Because we agree 100% on, we both want it, I think, in the very same direction. Is what would those policies need to look like that would excite people, that would motivate them to vote again for their own interests and for the interests of this country. So why don't we ping it back and forth? Why don't you say a policy and I'll say a policy, and we'll see where we're at, what is on our mind.
Okay. God. Okay. Top 5 policies that I need to see. God, feels like the last thing in the world I want to think about right now. I mean,
this is Ask Us Anything, so we have to play. You know?
It is. Okay, so I'm going to go with a little bit of a non-answer to the question before we start.
Okay.
Because I want to just make sure that things are understood. The policies that I would feel are reasonable as goals at this day in time are not the policies that swing the pendulum to where we need it to go. Okay. Like, I would like to say some crazy shit. Like, I would like to say I would like to say, let's get the entire playbook, let's get the open borders, let's get the 4-day work week, let's get the ranked choice voting, let's get all these things.
Okay.
But in terms of prioritizing a top 5 for the first 2 years post-Trump, none of those things, besides maybe the 4-day work week, to be perfectly honest, I feel like are reasonable priorities. Like, to me, it's universal health care and then the next 4, whatever you want. Like, do you feel the same way, Natalie?
I feel like universal healthcare is a non-negotiable for being on the platform moving forward, period. If they are not promoting, and I don't mean a public option, I don't mean expanding Obamacare. No. You're either using the language single payer healthcare or you are using the language Medicare for all. We're talking about everyone gets healthcare, and period. End of discussion. So that to me has to be number 1, really, because I think across party lines, we've seen that. I think another one that, we're talking a lot about in Pennsylvania right now, and we're actually very close to a vote on it, John, is a paid leave program. We're one of the only nations in the whole world that hasn't figured out that people sometimes need to take time off work and still need to have a job and still need to have income while they're taking that time off. And to me, these are like anti-poverty policies, right? So something like I would say for sure one would be universal healthcare. Paid leave for all would really be up there as well for me in a top 5. I'm talking reasonable suggestions for our 2-year following Trump. What about you for number 3? Where would you go?
So I would go, and this is going to be, okay, it's a little bit of an answer, but this is what I genuinely want to see, Natalie.
Yeah, no,
I want to see an explosion in progressive policy testing. I want to see a big, beautiful bill of 20 different pilot programs that test all of the things that we've always wanted to put in place. Yes. Universal healthcare, we know that fucking works. Yep. We can see all of our peer nations have it, and all but a few of them have better health outcomes than us, and all of them pay less for their healthcare than we do per capita. So we don't need to test that. That is, to me, we got to go for that. If we do the thing we did with Obama again and say we're going to do it and then don't deliver it, it's going to set us back 20 years again, just like it did last time, and we're going to end up right back where we are now. Totally. But after that, there's a bunch of things that are relatively untested that we should be pushing hardcore. 4-day work week being one of them, universal basic income being one of
That
them.
was on my mind. I was going to say UBI.
UBI could be tested at such a high rate, and if
Yep.
it works, it's one of those things where if it works, you win the next generation
Totally.
of elections. Like if you test it, it works, you implement it nationally and it works, the other party just dies. Like
Yeah.
I don't even know how you like don't win every, because it would be such a transformative change in our entire society. I would also like to see so I talk about this a lot. I would be best described as what one would say is a market socialist, where I do believe in markets. They have their place. I believe in capital investment. It has its place. But the means of production should be owned and operated by the people actually working. And what I would like to see generally is some sort of policy where you can have capital investment in any company over a certain amount of people in it, because you still want sole proprietorships and stuff. But you can see capital investment in any company up to 49%, and have the remaining 51% be worker owned. I would love to see pilots with that. France has a lot of really cool ideas about this. In France, Italy, there's one other country that's been working on more cooperative work structures that have been very, very successful. I would like to see that. I would like to see all of those pie in the sky progressive policies. I want to at least be having pilot tests of all of them being completed within the first 4 years. If feasible, maybe the test needs to take longer, whatever. But like, that needs to be things to get fucking excited about. Zorhan's public grocery stores. I just put out TikTok. I don't know if that'll work.
Right.
The evidence is very sparse, but it's something that got people excited and wanted to work toward. And those are the things that need to be part of the agenda of like, hey, this ain't your granddad's Democratic Party.
Right.
This is a new fucking political entity that is going to be doing things different. That's my grab bag. Again, it's not one policy. I don't know if all of them will work, but it needs to be pushing the envelope at every level.
Well, what I like about that is what I say all the time too, is we don't, first of all, dream big enough, and we're so afraid of failing. Like, why can't we have universal health care? Oh, what if it doesn't work? Well, what if it does? And it seems to be working everywhere else, right? So I think we got to get out of this headspace, which is the old fuddy-duddy 65 and over crowd, no offense, but the people running stuff, they're comfortable the way things are because they're not working in the world that we now live in, right? They're still, there were people today, this one Republican, I can't think of his name, but he was talking about how he didn't even understand who Medicaid supports. And he was basically saying people need to get off their butts and like start working. And it was just like this total disconnect in understanding like reality versus this rhetoric from 40 years ago about these kids today. It doesn't even make sense. So yes, I agree with all of that. I think the unsexy policy would be to reverse Citizens United and get these super PACs out of our
Natalie, let's just bundle it all together. Electoral reform.
Listen, let's just do that. Let's just do that, because the reality is we can't get the things that we want until we really do some major overhauls to our voting system, our infrastructure. Like, we need like a week holiday for voting. People need to be able to take time out of a whole week and enjoy voting. And also, voting should be a celebratory time in American history. So like, why aren't we making it more of that instead of trying to cram it in? And we should be expanding voting rights in general. So I think the voting package, we'll call it, that needs to be central to all of this as well. I do think that there are so many things in the Workers' Party, right, that we could be building on and creating, because we don't have a People's Party. We don't have a Workers' Party. I mean, that was something that Martin Luther King Jr. was really adamantly for and was building when he was murdered by our government. So to me, it's like, these are the things that need to be centered, is working people's policies, but they go in tandem with expansion of voting rights, racial justice, and of course, really, we need to get rid of the billionaire class, period. like when you make $999 million, you should get like a little trophy that says, I won the game of life. You should get a dog park named after you. And then all your money after that has to go right back into your community. Like you're done. Like, because when we hear 999 million, I think it sounds bigger than a billion, because it's like in your brain, you can't really tell a billion from a million. But when you hear 999 million, that's when you really start to hear like, dang, that's a lot of money, you know? So there needs to be some language around billionaires as well.
That our dumb lizard brains just can't understand large numbers. It's one of the biggest problems with humanity and our evolutionary path.
Yes.
Yeah, so and like also lump in there ranked choice voting, lump in gerrymandering reform, lump in term limits or age limits, or whatever you want to put in that slot. Lump in eliminating the electoral college. If we want to get real pie in the sky, fuck the Senate. Get it the fuck out of here. It's one of the dumbest institutions we have. There's
wild over here tonight, everybody.
One person, one vote should be the way democracy works. It's wild that is a radical policy position, Natalie. But here we are.
Every time we do that, we get things like the state of Wisconsin enshrining abortion rights. Wisconsin recently. So it's like people, when we take away sort of this political framework and we just vote on issues, it's interesting how people do decide to come out and support one another. It's fascinating to me.
It is. And you see, again, there is glimmers of hopes. There are the beginnings of the movement that gets us there. Again, mourn right now, but we're already working on the things to get the pendulum to swing. I want to say on this because we have universal healthcare number 1.
Yes.
We have
feel good.
We have ultra progressive policy testing number 2.
Yes.
We have electoral reform number 3. I would like to posit that number 4 needs to be building for the future, in building in green technology, building more homes, building more public transportation infrastructure. We need to have a second industrial revolution, and it needs to happen yesterday, because right now we're getting dog walked by China.
We sure are.
And this bill is going to set us back more, and that needs to be reversed immediately. And that is one of the things that I think, Natalie, maybe you think differently, is one of those bridge policies that I think can get a lot of independents and even conservatives on board, because I talk to a lot of people. Building housing, I don't hear too many people actually opposed to it in my day-to-day life, relative to how difficult it actually is. Building renewable energy, like we're gutting it right now because we're being run by like audience captured fucking internet conservatives. But the average conservative doesn't really actually have a problem with building more green energy. Like when you tell them, hey, we're going to build a shitload of solar energy, like the Elon Musk branch of the Republican Party is all for that. That is a gettable, even dare I say bipartisan potential issue that we can make immediate and significant progress on. That will be very, very tangible in everyday Americans' lives. This is one of the big mistakes of Biden's Build Back Better program, is that like nobody fucking saw what was being made. All the things, it was like, we're going to start making it 3 years from now. No one fucking knows, build it immediately. Start building now. Have a color scheme to it. I don't give a shit, so people know what the fuck was built during this time. And people like that. People like the idea of an industrious American nation. That's it, and we have the ability to do so. And to me, that might be, as much as universal healthcare needs to be the thing, just because of the symbolic value it represents. That is the thing that probably is even far more necessary. Just the longer we wait to do that, the farther and farther and farther we fall behind. We can keep not having universal healthcare for a long time. It'll suck for a lot of people, and like it hurts on the macro level. But it's not like we're going to fall behind and become not a very powerful nation as a result of it. That's what's going to happen here if we keep going down this road.
I hear that. I don't agree completely, because I feel like as we continue to be an aging population and more people are becoming ill and not having their mental health needs addressed, not having their dental, not having their eye exams, not being able to get screened for cancers, I do think it does impact us in the immediate, and it does have horrific economic outcomes as well, especially and I was thinking about this, I'd like to do as a fifth one, because I agree though with everything you said. I also think for that one we need to be lumping in AI regulation, because it's tied so much to the energy sector, it's tied so much to so many things, and it's just a wild west right now. And Peter Thiel and all of those conversation points and Palantir and all of that, but I think we need to have a health and human rights package here, because to me it's like, we've seen what is happening with COVID and how COVID has continued to plague our communities, and long COVID is creating more and more disabled communities, and there is going to be less and less support. We are not prepared for another pandemic. They're hiding what's going on with the bird flu. We are not dealing with measles outbreaks. Basically, it is all caving apart. We are so focused on these vaccines in the wrong ways. And I've interviewed so many people over the years for my radio show that work in public health. I think it's such an important component to a functioning society that we are prepared and able to protect the generations that are coming up, as well as the current ones. And along with that is the mental health aspects that come along when you are not recognized in your full humanity, when our trans and non-binary and LGBTQ communities are not being recognized in their full humanity, are not being given equal rights under the laws. And of course, when we're talking about women and economic equality and how equal pay, after COVID, it set us back like another 100 years, because so many women left the workforce because they had to care for so many people who were left behind because we did not and have not addressed what's going on with COVID. So for me, there needs to be a reckoning here around health and human rights as well. And so I would definitely want to center that in our top 5, because we can't get ahead if we continue to fall behind because we are sick and disabled.
Colby brings up a good point here. He says the homeless in America are uniquely left behind from no universal health care. Every country has homeless people. Only American ones make the news. It always shocks me how there has been this concept, which I am very much opposed to, of open the asylums back up for the homeless. And it's like, so you're telling me you're totally willing to have the government pay for healthcare for homeless people as long as they're in a fucking asylum, but you wouldn't let the government pay for healthcare to prevent them from getting to that point where they would need such intensive, like it's such an ass backwards way of approaching things. But anyway, now I'd like to add one more on it, because I agree with what you're saying. I just feel like it kind of has already been addressed in several of the other points. But the thing that I would think is like substantially different, but also kind of going after what you're talking about, be the actual anti-war party.
Ooh,
that would be defund the fucking military, and
get rid of ICE.
That's abolish ICE, demilitarize the police force, get us the fuck out of other countries, gut military, all of our excessive military spending, actually make, and I'm not saying, get rid of all military spending, but make the Pentagon actually fucking pass an audit, make that
that's a wild idea.
Stop funding Israel, obviously. And yeah, I'm totally fine with continuing to fund, Ukraine in defensive war. Like there are still useful applications for our military spending, but let's make it fucking work. Be the anti-war party. Be the party that war is the last fucking option we will ever take. For fucking real. Because I feel like there was this, I don't know, I was a kid back then, but after 9/11, Iraq war, still almost all the Democrats voted to invade Iraq. But
I think
then
Bernie was one of the few even back then that didn't.
Yeah. Good for Bernie. He's been pretty clear about these things his entire career. But like I remember there was anti-war sentiment from the Democrats sometime after the original invasion vote. There was this anti-war idea where Democrats opposed Bush's wars, and then Obama took office, and it just went away. It's like it was a non-issue. And now, after that, I couldn't tell you which party's the anti-war party. They seem to have the exact same idea of what our military should be doing. And it is terrifying that there isn't a single political faction in this country that is truly anti-war. That's what I'd like to put at number 5 instead. But we'll make it a 6. We'll make it a 6 list. Yeah, Colby, I'm sorry, we're putting a 6 on.
I like it. I think this is honestly, like, I'm listening to this and I'm hearing you and my wheels are turning and it's exciting to think about it. And I think this is exactly the kind of energy redirection that we need to have in the coming weeks and months ahead is sit, be sad, be angry, but let it also fuel us to think about what could that look like when we eventually could swing back. What would it take? Any of these things, any of them would be a huge improvement in American life right now, right? I think some are more practical in their application in this moment. But I mean, take your pick of issues. That's how rough this situation is right now, that you can pick anything and it would be an improvement. So I think we've got to start not just talking about this stuff more openly and normalizing conversations like this, because I do think people have this idea that these thoughts are radical, and they're really not, you guys. Wanting healthcare and housing for humans is not radical. Wanting to put human life ahead of, the military industrial complex is not radical. Wanting clean air and clean water and a public health system that works and public transit that works. None of these things are radical. It's just we've been conditioned to take such scraps from the table at this point because we do have an oligarchy that has seized power and is controlling our government, that I think anything that centers the people is such a wild thought. And I think it's really important that we continue to have these spaces to talk, because what I'm worried about is the kids that are being born now and growing up under a second Trump regime now that are 10, 11, 12 years old. They don't know that there was a whole other way of being prior to this fascist way of life, and that there is another way of being that's even much better than what we experienced growing up. And it can be actualized because we are creating this. And these asshats have decided to pass this bill that's going to create so much harm. Well, that's a radical thing to do. So why can't we flip that on its head and say, okay, well then what if we did it, but all of these things that could improve life? Why can't we look at that? And so I think that's what needs to kind of transpire. And yes, Colby, to universal education. I knew there was one thing that I was not hitting. Yes, to universal education, higher education being paid for. Everyone should have an education that they can not only just use in their practical life, but liberal arts schools are so important just in how they get you to think about your world. And I think sometimes we are so utilitarian in the United States that we forget that there is just a joy in learning how to think and the human condition and the human spirit itself. So I'm all for quality public education for all at any level that someone wants to seek it.
No, I agree with that. It's actually, when I saw Colby comment that, it put into perspective just how much Trump has been able to shift the Overton window, because during 2020, student loan forgiveness was an important talking point in the Democratic Party.
Yes.
And I hear universal education, and as someone who very, very much supports that, because why the hell not?
Why not?
At the very, very least, doctors, teachers, STEM majors, these jobs that we very much need an education for and very much need people to be doing and have shortages in, they should all be fucking free. I don't know, it doesn't make it. If we have a shortage of nurses, oh my fucking god, make it free to become a nurse. It's not that fucking complicated. Anyway, as I was saying, it's scary to me that my first thought there was, that's not a priority. Like again, I very much support that, but oh God, there's so much fixing that has to be done before we can even get to stuff like that. And yeah, if we can get it past, yeah, cool. Like I'm all for it. It just, unfortunately, to me, seems like a second order sort of issue.
It's because there's just too many fires we're trying to put out at once. It's like, how do you stop the bleeding? You know, I'm mixing metaphors here, but it's like I think you've got to just like figure out how to put it out before we can even rebuild. And I think that's the danger of what's happened with this regime being back in power, is they messed things up so bad the first time. And I know Biden, and we have a ton of issues with him, and rightfully so, but so much of his time was just spent trying to undo some of the damage that now with this second term and what he's done, it's going to take 10 times as long if this bill starts to get enacted in different ways. And so, and all of the Supreme Court rulings that have happened. And it's just, we've compiled trauma on trauma on trauma. And so the idea of thinking of something as simple as universal education, which absolutely should be a thing, is now like, I don't know if we have the bandwidth for that. Like, just mentally, like, it just shows you where we're at. It's just wild. It's wild. I'm very angry.
Yeah, it's
not how I wanted to spend my 40s at all, but that's fine.
It's where we're at, Natalie.
It's just where we're at. I have to let it go.
The realization, like a couple days after the election, there was the realization, like, fuck.
I know.
By the time we're out of this, I'm going to be in my 30s.
No, dude.
Oh God, terrible. I hate it. But either way, Natalie, I want to shift gears here a little bit.
Yes.
I like what we just did. It was a positive exercise. It actually made me feel a slight bit happier, right?
Good.
But as you said,
yeah,
we do need to sit with what has happened, and with the big beautiful bill in particular. Yes. I know I have my answer to this question.
Oh, okay.
But what is, if you could put one thing that you are most worried about? And I'm not saying what is going to have the largest negative impact, because that could be a hell of a lot of things.
Sure.
I'm saying you and your personal viewpoint. What are you most worried about with this? What is it? And if you don't have an answer right now, I can go to mine.
No, I do. I mean, as much as obviously I'm worried about so many things, and including SNAP and Medicaid and ICE expansion, the military budget increasing exponentially for that. There was something in the bill, and I'm almost positive it was in there, and I'll have to double check when you're talking, but there was something about Trump being allowed to either delay or cancel elections. And I think it made it into the final version, and nobody was talking about it. And it always gets me nervous when nobody's talking about something. So if we could, and I know we're doing this in real time. I didn't know you were going to ask me that question. I apologize. Is voting, there was something about voting in the bill, and I don't know if it made it into this final version or not, but what concerns me if it did, because to me, that's like the balance of our democracy, and hearing that he might have the ability to cancel or delay votes or elections, that kind of stuff scares the hell out of me. So immediate panic mode is for our actual democracy. Like I'm on fire for all of it. Like, I feel crazy because I feel like I can't land on something. But to me, the idea that Trump could say, hey, yeah, we're not going to have another election. Like, I'm just now running shit, and it's legal because it was in this bill that you guys voted for. So cool, deal with it. I'm not leaving in 4 years. In fact, I'm going to die in office. Like, that to me restructures our entire democracy. So That's the thing that I had read. Now, are you looking for it? Is that what you're doing?
Yes. So I found an article from the AP, and Natalie, I will set you slightly at ease here.
Okay, tell me, because
So
that was like a
a
couple of days ago. So
so there was a provision kind of calling for that exact sort of thing
mhm.
in the original bill that passed the House the first time.
Okay.
But when it went to the Senate, that section was removed. Uh, Funny enough, by the Senate parliamentarian who ruled it violated the Byrd rule.
That's
So
right. That's right.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. I feel better. So then my second point on fire was, but first of all, I just want to note, I can't believe that was even in the bill. Like that should not have ever, 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 ever been up for debate, period. So that scares me, John, because that means that in the roots of all of this, this is a true fascist takeover because this is the kind of direction they want to continue to move in. So let's just call that out. And I'm glad that we put that to rest, but that never should have been in there. This was supposed to be this was supposed to be for tax breaks for billionaires, and somehow it devolved into the mess that it is now. The second thing that has me really nervous is the expansion of the money for ICE, because I don't think people understand that this is now Trump's secret police. And now he actually has the money to fund it in the way that he wants to. And if anyone thinks that it is going to stop with this idea of the undocumented immigrant, which to me is disgusting that we would be arresting anyone just simply for being undocumented. That was just a civil offense. It was never supposed to be like a criminal thing. But the fact that they're building more detention centers, and if they are going to be forced labor camps, they are then concentration camps. And the fact that they just did this thing in Alcatraz, alligator Alcatraz in Florida, and the idea that they're going to have more money than other countries' military budgets. It's going to be billions, I think $37.5 billion a year over the next several years to increase and ramp up his secret police, when we know that there's not a due process in place right now, when we know that they're sending people to other countries, like all of these things, and SCOTUS is basically giving him carte blanche to do more. I'm very concerned about just our ability to call ourselves a democracy or a republic at all, now that that money has been allocated for ICE specifically. So that was my second on fire one, now that you've made me at least feel better about the first one.
Yes. So that was my answer as
Oh,
well.
that's funny. She got
Because
a prize for getting the same one.
it's because all leftists think alike. We get our orders from George Soros, and that's exactly
That's right.
that's
Then we just
exactly
kind
what
of,
we
yeah.
say. Exactly. But okay. I don't know if that, or honestly, I would severely doubt that that ends up being the most damaging aspect of this bill. Just on the pure
Totally.
truism of the things that end up being the most impactful are those, little universal budget things that
Yep.
impact billions and billions of people in less extreme ways, end up having a far more larger calculated toll than the severe sort of terrible evil things that get our attention. But this is one of those terrible evil things. I couldn't help, as I was falling asleep last night, just thinking to myself, it just feels like every day we are one day closer to when the really bad shit starts happening. And I posted about that on Threads, and I had a lot of people commenting, didn't you know the really bad shit is already happening? Gaza's going through a genocide, XYZ is happening. I'm like, okay, I understand, like I get
Right.
what you're saying, and I agree with you, but I don't think you get what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm very, very worried that we are going to have our own genocide here. Like that is, and again, yeah, fuck me. I'm more worried about that than other things, but like I am. And that's just a reality that I never thought I would ever have to live through.
Oh my God, same.
And it's
Yeah.
awful.
No, it's beyond awful. It is beyond awful. I remember being a kid And my grandfather had a lot of issues after he came back from World War II. Like he was an alcoholic. He died from alcoholism. He never really recovered from what he witnessed. And he used to tell me, I used to ask him, you were at a concentration camp. You helped liberate them. What was that like? And he said to me, I'll never tell you anything but the funny stories, because the things that I saw would give you nightmares and you'd never recover from it. And I think I bring him up not just to honor his memory, but to remind people that it wasn't that long ago that this happened with Americans' involvement, right? And the fact that, like, to your point, what we're witnessing that's happening in Gaza, what we're funding, we're on the flip side of this now. And I can only think of what my grandparents, I had 3 of them, 3 out of 4 of my grandparents fought in World War II. My grandmother was an army nurse in London. And I just think of like the stories that they told me. And I'm just like, the idea that something could happen on American soil after what they sacrificed, right, for our country and for the people here, so that all of us would never have to experience or live through that trauma, and create a country that was the ideal in their minds of what we could become. Not that we ever achieved that, but there was this aspirational aspect. And now that I don't feel in any way like I want to call myself an American. I am so horrified and embarrassed, and I can't believe that tomorrow is the 4th of July. And not that I was ever like this 4th of July person. I've never been patriotic. But the idea that Trump is going to sign this bill on that day just feels like the final nail in the coffin for me. And I can't get over the symbolism, the weird timing of this. And it's just a really reflective moment of thinking, was that all in vain? That all of those things that our ancestors went through here, it's like, was this all in vain? Look where this is. Look where we are right now. And it's just, I'm not sure how to get out of this headspace right now. I'm really not. And like I said, I'm fully aware the generation that I'm talking about with my grandparents, they were in no way perfect at all. There was a lot of problems there. We know that. I'm just saying, from what that was to where we are now, it's just horrifying to me to think if my grandmother came back today to tell her what has happened since, she would hate Trump with all of her being. I know that, but like, I just can't fathom what I would even tell them, like where we are. It's just wild to me, John. I'm still in a little bit of disbelief over what happened today. I really am. I think there was a part of me that really thought enough of them are going to just wake up and realize this is a bad idea. I don't know. Stupid me.
Yeah, they've always been like this, Natalie. They've always.
I know.
It has always been the Republican Party.
I know.
This happened on November 5th, 2024. It didn't happen today. And it just is there's going to be more things that are going to continue happening that actually happened on November 5th, 2020. It was November 5th, right? I'm not putting my foot in my mouth there. Or was it like November 6th or something? I forget.
Because
I forget the exact
everybody's
date.
going to give space and grace today.
But for anyone who feels like we might be exaggerating.
Yes,
it was November 5th. Okay. For anyone who feels like we might be exaggerating right now, because you hear this talked about a lot. They're like, oh, you call everything a Nazi, whatever. And it's like, okay, I want to share a couple things here.
Yeah.
First, what Natalie was talking about earlier, this is, oh, my bad. This is military budgets, right? For not every country, obviously, but the top countries. Obviously, United States, we've all known this has always been embarrassing, just utterly embarrassing. But yeah, that's the way it's always been. China, Russia, India, we're seeing these things here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There are only 15 countries with military budgets that are larger than the ICE budget is now at 37.5 million. Behind ICE is fucking Israel. I need you guys to fathom what that means, what that kind of budget can accomplish. We've seen what that money did to Gaza, what that amount of money did to Gaza. And that's not going to happen here. We're not going to see cities razed to the ground. At least, God fucking damn it, I hope not. But spread that out.
Yeah.
ICE is now the largest federal agency that we've ever had. And they are going to be ramping up all of this.
Yeah.
And this combined with the opening of Alligator Alcatraz this week, combined with the Trump administration releasing a memo from the Department of Defense saying that they want to prioritize the denaturalization of American citizens for deportation. I don't know how anyone can look at these things, even if you truly believe that this is good, you must be able to admit, hey, the people who are worried about this becoming an American Holocaust, at least there's credence there. It's not even you have to squint to see it anymore. It's there. And here is Laura Loomer.
I know where you're going with this.
Laura Loomer, for those who don't know, she is a conservative influencer, whatever you want to call it, who is very much a advisor of Donald Trump's. She has been on Air Force One. She regularly advises him. And she wrote Alligator Lives Matter. The good news is alligators are guaranteed at least 65 million meals if we get started now. And I just want to, in case anyone missed that there are between 11 and 15 million undocumented immigrants in this country. There's exactly 65 million Hispanic Americans.
That's so funny you said that. I just put out a Substack. I'm on Substack. If you want to check it out, Facts Over Fear. I'm on Substack, and I just posted this exact thing today. That is so funny. It's like we are so aligned here, John, because I don't think people understand that number 65 million was incredibly intentional. That was on purpose for her to say that number, because basically they are terrified of this country's shifting demographics, and they want to remain in power, and they're willing to do it by any means necessary, even if it means wiping out entire races and ethnic groups of people. And we know what the words are for that. And so the idea that this is, once again, this soft sell, it's never, you never go from 1 to 100. It's the steps in between. And first you treat them like they're subhuman. You talk about them like they're subhuman. You dehumanize them in all ways. You try to strip them of their humanity, of their language, of their culture. I mean, this is all what the Republican Party has been doing for the past several years. And now they have the funding to back these ideas. And I know people are going to say, oh, you're being an alarmist. Listen, I don't like being right in this case, but we've been right about all of this up to this point. Everything that we have said, when we said they're going to try to take Roe, and nobody believed us, and it happened. And it's like, guys, you've got to wake up. They are not hiding. They've never hidden their agenda. It's in clear, plain sight. And we've got to recognize this moment for what it is. And we've got to figure out how we're going to fight back. Is it a general strike? Do we withhold federal tax dollars? What are we going to do? The time for talking about this is, we're at the end of it. We're protesting in the streets. That's great. I think we can continue to do that, but we've got to start hitting people where it hurts. And I think for this type of crowd, it's got to be pocketbook. And I just feel like there's going to be so much pushback on getting people to organize. But I was at a No Kings rally a few weeks ago covering it, and one of the union heads of one of the unions made it such a good point. They said something like, you need so many million, it would be 3.5%, right, to sit out and general strike, and that could really shut the economy down. Well, it's something like I can't remember how many millions of people, but there's more than that in our unions. And so wouldn't it make sense to just go to the unions first to start a general strike? And I thought, damn, we could actually do this. And I don't want people to think that these things are unattainable. There are so many more of us than there are of them. And I think we've just got to remind ourselves that we have strength and power in numbers, but we've got to get organized. And so I encourage anybody that's listening or watching to plug in to your 5051 organization, plug into Indivisible, plug into a local chapter of one of your unions, and just see what they're talking about. You don't have to be front and center, but just start educating yourself on what this would look like, because I do think that this is going to be one of the cards that we have to play in the coming months ahead. And yeah, it's going to be ugly, because it's not going to be we're just going to boycott everything for a day, or we're not going to work for a day. It could go on and on. And so what are the mutual aid groups in your community that you can start investigating and being a part of? Because we're going to have to get really serious if we want to shut it down. And I think that's what we're going to have to do.
Natalie, I don't, first of all, everything you just said, 100% correct. And it is something that I've started looking into more and more seriously. I don't know where that road goes, or we know where it goes. I don't know where it ends. I don't know how far down it we have to travel. And God, I hope it isn't that far. But yeah, it's gotten to at least the point for me where I just can't stomach Trump supporters anymore. Like, there was a time when there's Democrats, there's Republicans, there was liberals, there was leftists, there whatever there was, and we could all generally get along. Obviously there was conflict. Obviously there was political divide in this country. Like, don't get me wrong, but this is different. I'm going to put on the screen now a court statement from Kilmar Abrego Garcia. For anyone who is unaware, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was one of the men who was sent to the CCOT facility in El Salvador. And he, without a trial, his worst crime that you could call a crime is that he was in this country illegally. He did nothing. There's no evidence of any other sort of crime happening to him. And this is his account of what happened while he was there. So I'll just read this out loud. Upon arrival at CCOT, the detainees were greeted by a prison official who stated, "Welcome to CCOT. Whoever enters here doesn't leave." Plaintiff Abrego Garcia was then forced to strip, issued prison clothing, and subjected to physical abuse, including being kicked in the legs with boots and struck on his head and arms to make him change clothes faster. His head was shaved with a zero razor, and he was frog marched to cell 15, being struck with wooden batons along the way. By the following day, Plaintiff Abrego Garcia had visible bruises and lumps all over his body. In cell 15, Plaintiff Abrego Garcia and 20 other Salvadorians were forced to kneel from approximately 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., with guards striking anyone who fell from exhaustion. During this time, Plaintiff Abrego Garcia was denied bathroom access and soiled himself. Detainees were confined to metal bunks with no mattresses in a crowded cell with no windows, bright lights that remained on 24 hours a day, and minimal access to sanitation. That is horrific to happen to anyone. I would not wish that on Jeffrey Dahmer.
No. Sorry, go ahead.
And here we are our government is doing this on our behalf to a man who has been convicted of no crime at all, with the exception of it was found he was here illegally. That's it. And if the conservative position that I can vehemently disagree with, but still be able to get along with you, is, yeah, we need to have strict immigration control and remove immigrants from this country who are here illegally. I don't like you for that. I don't think you're a good person. I think you're wrong, both morally and strategically and economically, but I can exist. I can coexist with you. If you are okay with not just sending those people out of the country, but sending them to be tortured in those conditions for the rest of their days, you've lost your humanity. Like, I cannot coexist with you without just searing hatred. And couple that with, again, it shouldn't matter, you should never do this to anyone, but coupled that with the denaturalization of American citizens. My fiance is a naturalized American citizen. She came here when she was 4 years old, and she became an American citizen. And on Wednesday, when that was reported, she called me in tears, completely distraught by what could happen to her and her family, who are also naturalized American citizens. And I had to sit there and be like, I don't know. I can't tell you everything's going to be okay. I sure as shit hope that you and your family and everyone doesn't get subjected to this. Mm-hmm. And 2 years ago, I would have been incredibly confident in saying you won't. But here we are. And if you're okay with doing that to someone I love, and let's be honest, Natalie, it's not going to stop there. They're going to come for us next. The leftists, the socialists, the whatever you want to call us. It always has happened in every fascist regime in history.
Always.
If you are saying you want that to happen to me, the best result is that I never fucking talk to you again. That would be I would be showing you far more humanity than you have shown me if that is simply all I do to you. And that is where I'm at with people who continue to support this regime.
100%. There's nothing left to debate. There wasn't anything left to debate 4 years ago, to 8 years ago, but now it's to the point where it's like, these people are Nazis. Like, these are full on fascists. These are authoritarian scum, and they do not deserve to be president of, a condo association, let alone running the United States of America. And they've infiltrated our government. I think we've downplayed the Christian nationalist faction of this and how this all plays into it. And I think that's been a huge problem for white Americans in particular to grapple with. I have very visceral feelings when I read and hear these accounts, because the level of human rights violations, the level of human rights abuses, it just hits me in a way that I feel like I'm once again horrified and embarrassed. And we have never dealt with the trauma that was inflicted on this land, onto the people of this land when this nation was founded. We've never dealt with the genocide of the indigenous people. We never dealt with the enslavement of people. We brushed it off, and we brushed it off as white Americans, and we brushed it under the rug. And, I know this seems sort of like, well, how does that all tie in? But it absolutely does, because this country was founded on the dehumanization of other people. And so I think it's just a hop, skip, and a jump for a lot of people who have never done any kind of introspective work, who have never looked at their own blind spots, their own prejudices, and saw how those impact people on the micro and the macro level. And it's really easy to understand how people are now here. But I got to tell you, for me, like, I have been talking to a lot of my friends who are like, I am working on an escape plan. I have a way out of here. People are telling me how they're leaving. I'm too fucking angry to leave. Like, this is my home too. Why should these people, who are the very worst of us, get to call claim to this space? you want to treat people like this, then go live in El Salvador. Like what are you doing trying to infuse this level of corruption and authoritarian bullshit into my home? Like, fuck you. Like, that's where I'm at. I'm just so angry that it's like, no, I get why some people want to leave. And I think that's their choice. And of course, I understand that. But for me, it just makes me want to stay and fight because this is so much bigger than you or I as individuals. This is a philosophical and a metaphysical thing. This is, who do we want to be? Who do we want to be? And this ain't it. And this ain't it. And so we've got to really figure out, what does that look like in order to consciously fight this? Because this is starting to actually get some roots to it. And we got to rip this shit up like now. That's where I'm at. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. But the time for talk is kind of over. It's like there needs to be action. And to your point, John, much earlier in the conversation, I don't think the leadership in the DNC are in any way the leaders that are going to help us move forward. We need the Zoran Mandami energy. We need the AOC energy, the Jasmine Crockett energy. We need that level of intensity. I'm not saying we have to agree with everything as individuals, but we need people that are willing to say and stand up and fight. And that is not the current leaders. It's not the Chuck Schumers that we are seeing right now in power.
I mean, we need James Connolly energy, Natalie. It's
Listen, I know. I'm just throwing out names of people.
No, you're right. It's really. I don't know when it happened, but there was a point where simply stopping this became not enough.
Yeah.
It needs to be uprooted and eradicated. Like what you just said, how white Americans in particular have never really grappled with the genocide that we inflicted on the Native American population. We learn about slavery, but most of us have never really grappled with what that means. And myself included, often find myself learning things about those time periods, just going like being disgusted.
Yeah.
And that was just everyday life for the longest fucking time. And we never really grappled with it. We never really learned and changed and eradicated this. Back in the 20s, 30s, there was a fucking American fascist party that wanted us to go and join an ally with Hitler and Germany. And it was significant. It was a large movement and it never fucking went away. We won the war, but that movement never went away. It's just been building and building and building. It's the same ideologies. And I will not be satisfied until they are destroyed in their entirety. That will not end when Donald Trump leaves office. That will not end when the concentration camps are torn down. It will probably not end before I die.
Right.
But I will never forgive people for this. Like, I will never, ever, ever forgive. I will be, for people who want to truly repent and realize the error of their ways and help fight, I'll forgive them. But the people who don't ever grapple, the people who just move forward, that I cannot. I just won't be able to. It has passed that point for me.
It has passed that point for me as well. And Colby, I'm so sorry about your situation with your friends of the last 8 years. You are not alone, my friend. I've also stopped speaking to people in my circle because of certain beliefs that these are no longer your beliefs that we can agree to disagree on. These are like fundamentally who you are. And I'm so sorry. I think you are not alone in that. I think a lot of people are dealing with that and having to come to some real hard realizations. And I know people that have stopped talking to family members too, because of this. And I think that's even sadder, is how this cult has really taken root and poisoned people because of the media that they're consuming. And I think that's why independent media like this is really important. Whether or not you agree with us is sort of irrelevant. It's just hearing other perspectives, opening your mind to thinking that, oh, there are other people out there thinking about things differently. I can think about things differently too. I don't have to blindly follow what the supreme leader, state sanctioned media is telling me. And I think that in and of itself is a tiny triumph. And the things that I hold to are being in community spaces like this, where, yeah, John and I agreed on most things tonight. There may be some things we didn't. And that's cool. That's okay. But we both recognize each other's basic humanity. And that to me is what is missing on the other side of this scenario right now. Is there are people that do not see me as a woman in my basic humanity because they have supported laws that restrict my ability to receive health care depending on which state I am in, right? They are restricting the rights of other people. They're trying to create a caste system in the United States that is very clearly defined. And for me, I cannot now participate in relationships with people that cannot see me or someone else in their full humanity. So I think that's why spaces like this right now are more vital than ever. So thanks for being with us tonight.
And this is probably one of our lowest audience shows that we've had in a while, Natalie. I think it's because people are just like probably felt exactly like I did all day, where I was like, I don't want to fucking do this. I don't blame people who are like, I don't want to listen to more of this right now. I want to check out it's rough. And like, that's what you said now. It's just like the concept of wanting this to happen to people. Like, and I know that a lot of people will never see that account from Kilmar Berger Garcia, but a lot of them have, and a lot of them want that. And at that point, I really don't care what anything. I don't care if you're my family. I don't care if you're. I don't care if you're my own brother. No, that you are beyond help at that point. Or at least my ability to help, because God, I just don't know. I don't know how people see that and like it's okay. I got someone commented on one of my things yesterday, and it was about the denaturalization of U.S. citizens, and he was saying he was a Democrat who was like, oh no, this isn't going to be for natural born Americans. This is for immigrants who naturalized. It's a privilege for them to come here and do that. I'm like, what the fuck? Since when has it become okay to say that all Americans aren't equal? Since when has it become okay to say some American citizens should live under a different set of rules than others? It's insane. 5 years ago, even during Trump administration 1, I couldn't have imagined people saying that out loud. And just, this is where we are. They're selling merch to the concentration camps.
This is the normalization of this rhetoric. And that is exactly what we were talking about earlier. This is where it leads. It's when we start to normalize speaking in this way. That's why Carolyn Levitt or Levitt or whatever the hell her last name is. That's why she is so sinister to me, because her job every day as press secretary is to normalize what is happening. And that's why she's looking worse and worse as the weeks and months go on, because she is internalizing the lies and she knows that she is lying. And I think it's really important that we continue to call out truth to power and hold these people accountable for the things that they do and they say. And I hope at the end of this, there are trials, and Kristi Noem and Pete Hegseth and all of them have to stand and be held accountable for the torture and the pain and the irrevocable harm that they have caused. Because to your point, it doesn't matter how you became a citizen, whether you were born here or you became a citizen later in your life. It's not just a privilege to be an American citizen. It's a privilege that people want to be here. That's it's our joy and honor to be like, wow, people want to be here. Like, that's so awesome. How do we make it work so that people that want to build lives and be a part of communities and have families and bring their talents and their gifts to our space? That's cool. That's our honor. Like, we're looking at this from just such a specific perspective, and it's like we need to start flipping it and realize we need people as much to come here as they need to come here, right? Because that's how we thrive as a nation, when we have that eclectic, messy mix of beautiful, different voices and stories and livelihoods and lives that make this place amazing. Because it's not going to be that if we continue to marginalize, torture, and terrorize the people that could make us actually great, you know?
The idea, the very concept that I should care less about someone or treat someone differently based on the location of their birth
Whew.
is so it's always been insane to me.
Yeah.
But it is the actual default position of the vast majority of Americans, and it just blows my mind. Like, I don't know 99.9% of the people who live in a 10-mile radius of me. I'll probably never see them.
Right.
And to me, it's like, yeah, they're just another person. I don't give a shit where the fuck you were born. Are you paying your taxes? Are you following the law? Cool. Then we have no fucking problem. We're going to just continue to build this country all together, but also separately, and just collectively work towards different goals. That's what it's about. Why the fuck should I care where you were born? Who gives a shit? Why is a baby born on our side of the border in Texas different than a baby born on the other side of the border in Texas? Fuck that. They want to get rid of birthright citizenship. Mm-hmm. Why is a baby born in the same fucking hospital supposed to be treated differently because his parents aren't documented American citizens? It makes no sense, Natalie. It makes no sense to me. And this is the kind of thing where I'm like, this needs to be eradicated. I'm not just talking Trump. This very fucking concept that being an American means diddly fucking shit to how I'm going to treat you or want my government to treat you on my behalf needs to be fucking blown up. And that's not just the fucking MAGA. That's not just the fucking conservatives. That's most Americans need to have that re-educated in their brains.
And I think that's going back to, and I agree, I think that goes back to this whole concept of white Americans need to grapple with their internalized racism, because that's where that stems from, this sense of, if I may not be rich, but at least I'm white, so that makes me better. There is this energy. And once again, what the 1% who own all the corporate media have done really well is putting out that propaganda that makes sure that we're facing each other in opposition, instead of realizing that the real people that we need to be fighting with is the oligarchy that is trying to take everything from us. Because at the end of the day, I think Toni Morrison said it, racism is like it's a distraction from the work. Like, this is all a distraction from the reality that they are picking our pockets every single day. But we are too busy infighting because we are so concerned about how dark somebody's skin is, because that's really what this comes down to. Because they're not trying to get rid of certain immigrants, John. It's very clear which immigrants they don't want coming. And Laura Loomer said it louder than any of them, the 65 million that she was referring to, right? So I think part of the argument here goes back to the fact that we need to deal with our internalized collective racism. And I do not see that happening, especially right now, considering they are being validated in their little feelings.
They are. And to address, so General Guda said, I agree they're a cult and they're absolutely terrible, but to say half the country needs to be eradicated, destroyed, that's a little wild. We need to rebuild our party. I'm not saying the humans need to be eradicated. Just to be clear, in case that was misunderstood, the ideology needs to be eradicated and destroyed. It is harmful, it is dangerous, and it needs to be removed from society in the same way we did after World War II. Fascist ideology used to be not acceptable in polite society, and yet here we are with literal fucking the people in government saying shit like, yeah, no, if you're born to undocumented parents, you shouldn't be an American. Like, get the fuck out. We should be feeding all the Hispanic people to the alligators. Get the fuck out. That needs to be gone. I'm just not okay. I'm not okay with sitting here and like being okay with it anymore.
No.
It's just you're not a good person if you believe that. You just aren't, and I don't have to pretend like you are. Oh, by the way, Mark, I see in the comments I don't have the patience for it today. I am ignoring you, but mostly because it's more of a if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all sort of situation. We can talk at a later date, Mark. But Natalie, I wanted to wrap this show up here because we're entering the last segment with something a little lighter, just to have a nice taste in my mouth as we end the stream. But you mentioned this earlier. In case you guys are unaware, it is July 3rd, which means tomorrow is July 4th. And every year I make some sort of post about, hey guys, I spend the other 365 days of the year criticizing America. Today, I put on my fucking American flag tank top and I sit by the pool. I drink some beers. I listen to some fun American music, cook some hot dogs and hamburgers, and I pay homage to all of the good things about America, because even in times like this, still a lot of good things in this country, a lot of good people, a lot of good this country has done, is doing, and will continue to do in the future. I don't think I'm going to make that post this year, Natalie. It's just too fucking hard at this moment.
I agree. It's too close.
But I was thinking about one of those aspects of the music I'm going to listen to. And I've been putting together a playlist of music that feels like Americana, that makes me feel like this is American music, but has the opposite sort of message, or at least some sort of resistance or pro-labor or anti-American government message. And that's what I want to talk about today. And I think the two that are very much most obvious are Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen.
Just thinking of it, yep.
And Fortunate Son by...
It's a classic.
Who sings Fortunate Son? I'm just completely forgetting that
right now. I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
I'm terrible with artist names. I'm good with song titles.
That's okay. And I've been trying to add to this playlist of those sort of songs that if you're not really paying attention, it feels like a 4th of July song. And those two songs, by the way, are going to be played tomorrow by a lot of people who don't understand what the fuck they're talking about. But Natalie, can you think of any other songs like that that we can add to our playlist tomorrow as we celebrate the holiday in whatever ways we see appropriate? Because again, there are things. It's important to remember that the good is still there.
I understand that, and I'm all about trying to find the silver lining. I'll add somebody because I'm pissed off at her right now as a person. But when I was a kid, American Woman, I like that one, Mark. When I was a kid, she was one of my first sort of like forays into sort of folk music. I loved Jewel growing up, and she wrote a song called Life Uncommon, which is a protest song, but it's got a real folksy sort of country twang. And if you didn't really listen, you wouldn't really hear, but the entire song is about standing up for people around us and standing together to fight for a better future. And I've always loved that song. I think it's a beautiful protest song. But it doesn't, if you're not listening, it's very twangy and cute, but it's not cute. The lyrics are excellent. And I'm just really angry with her right now because she was at Jeff Bezos's wedding, and she's been on the fence about her support for RFK.
I saw your post about that, and I was like, who's Jewel?
She was my absolute favorite when I was a kid. She was like, she lived in her car. She was homeless. Wow. She was an Alaskan kid that was a yodeler, and her family, they didn't grow up, they didn't have running water. I mean, really interesting story. And she came to LA and literally lived in her car. And hit it big as an incredible songwriter. And it just upsets me on every level, John, that she's been selling out lately. And I don't understand why, because she's brilliant. So I'm still going to stand by the song though. So it's a good one.
It's funny. So there was the whole, Zoran thing where if you look at like the average income of his voters, poorer, lower income voters leaned Cuomo, whereas the more higher income voters leaned Zorhan. And it's a very interesting, and people are like, oh, you're telling me he's the working class person? All of these college educated, upper middle class, rich socialists, they don't actually understand what the working class wants. And I actually feel like that demographic of people, of which I am a part, actually gets this stuff the most, because I don't have to do this. Like, I didn't grow up poor. I didn't grow up obscenely rich, but I grew up very comfortably. Solid upper middle class existence, went to college, never had to worry about food on the table. Was able to get all my favorite video games, whatever it was as a kid, I got it. What if I needed it, I got it,
Yeah.
And having that stability and then learning about all of this stuff, I do feel like makes it stick a little bit more. This is really just anecdotal. I'm going off of my own personal experience, but I feel like there's a lot of people who grew up really poor, like you just said, with Joel, who end up maybe even getting into the more revolutionary thought, but once they stop being poor, that ideology was connected to their condition. And when their condition changed, so did their ideology. And you see that time and time and time again. Again, many didn't. There's a lot of different people in this world. But I think that does explain why you do see this tendency for better off, college-educated people getting farther and farther left, whereas the working poor is more or less staying put. And I do think that is a possible explanation for that phenomenon. But again, that's just me speculating here.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I also really love Beyonce's version of Blackbird, which was originally a Beatles song, and the Beatles wrote it. They were actually, I think not John Lennon, Paul McCartney, I think, wrote it because he was actually referring to Black women having the right to vote. And so it was a very pro expansion of civil rights. But her version of it is beautiful. And another one that, once again, if you're not really listening or hearing context, it just sounds like a pretty Beyonce song, but it's actually like a very powerful protest song as well.
It's funny. So I actually haven't heard the Beyonce version. I have heard the Beatles version. So I got to go look that one up. But it's there's
a Cowboy Carter album.
Okay. I didn't really like the Cowboy Carter album.
I didn't either. But it's a nice cover of it.
I got my thoughts and feelings about that album, but that's really irrelevant to this conversation. But there's
what I'm thinking.
There was another, not Beatles, specifically a John Lennon song that was a cover that I think did it better than John Lennon did, or at least for my personal taste. And that was Green Day's cover of Working Class Hero. I don't know if you ever heard that one, but that is a wonderful, both the lyrics of the original song and Green Day's particular cover of it. I absolutely love and is going on this list. Did you have another song to add here?
Yes, and I'm trying to find her. She sings "Ain't I American," and she's a Black country singer. I'm looking her up right now. Music. And I think the song's called "Ain't I American," or maybe it's just called "American." I'm gonna look it up right now because it's gonna make me crazy because I listened to it and it's once again, it's got that twang to it, but it's a very country song. Sorry, I'm looking at her name's Mickey Guyton. It's called "All American."
All American.
All American, but she sings Ain't I American in it. And her name is Mickey Guyton, Guyton. And it's a great song. It's very upbeat, but the lyrics are very, it's very much about like who gets to call themselves American, who gets to claim being American. So it very much harkens back to what we were just talking about, this idea of ownership over that space. And her just being a Black country singer in and of itself is very cool. And very much the roots of where country music came from was from Black communities. But it's a really good song.
I will look that one up because it seems like it is barking right up my tree there in terms of the messages that I like to hear. Okay. So definitely had a few good ones here. Since I just said a Green Day song, I will add. There's a lot of Green Day songs we can put on here, but I don't. I Green Day. Let me tell you, Natalie. My fucking generation, like when I was growing up, that was Green Day's peak, and they're one of those artists that like you just like go into their discography and you're just like, oh shit, banger.
Oh, I know.
It's incredible. There's very few artists with as deep of a catalog as they have. Yes. I saw them live, and it was by far without it's just like tier 1 Green Day best performance I've ever seen in my life. But to put them on their American Idiot. You cannot have this list without putting American
Not
Idiot
at all. I agree.
on it.
That's a great
yeah, that's a pretty easy one to put on there. And by the way, we got to see a couple new audience members here. We're creating a playlist to celebrate America tomorrow in a much more combative way than one might typically do on a 4th of July. So songs that feel like Americana, but are actually more so protest songs.
I think we should.
USA being the quintessential example of this.
Yeah, I think we should put a little Black Eyed Peas on there too, because their song "Where Is the Love." I was listening to my one list that's all like 2000 hits, like hits from the 2000s, and that song hits me every single time. Once again, it's very boppy, it's very fun, but it's really about social justice and how can we continue to move forward as a nation. I mean, it's a really good one. And I'll say too, the last thing I think it's from Janet Jackson's album, Janet, which was, I still think her very best album. Mm-hmm. And I think the song is called Racism. But it is, yes, it's called Racism. It is such a good song. And once again, if you're not listening to it, it's just this hot Janet Jackson, like very boppy, but kind of sultry, but it's got these really important lyrics. And every time I listen to it, I go, damn, this was like from what, 1993. And we're still not dealing. We still haven't dealt with this. It's still happening. And, we're looking at how many decades now later. Because I just thought, even when I was a kid, I was like probably 8 or 9 years old when I first heard it. And it just like blew my mind. I was like, what is this? Like, this song is amazing. And what she's saying, and oh my gosh. And yeah, it's from her album, Janet, which I still think is one of the very best albums of all time, period. So good.
Yeah. All right. I got that one. I have not heard. I haven't been huge into Janet Jackson. But the way you describe it.
This is an old song, but I really think you'll like it.
So I'm going to put, if you think that's an old song, I'm going to put an older song on here. A song that doesn't often get recognized because it very much is one of the, as you're a kid on the 4th of July, it is one of the songs that like you hear and it's a beautiful song. And if you didn't know who it was written by, you'd be probably surprised, but that would be This Land Is Your Land.
Oh my
gosh.
Land is our land. I was gonna say if we didn't bring it up, this was one I was gonna bring up because it's actually it's got a very important like sort of socialistic message to it, and I'm really glad you included it because it's a classic. It's a classic.
Yes, I'm really hoping I spell things correctly there. Woody Guthrie. Yeah, I think I got it right.
Share this list with me offline because I'm going to put this together now myself too because I'm really excited that you did this. It's nice.
I think I'm going to be sharing this. publicly as well. As soon as I figure out how to do that on the Left Wing account. But yeah, so yeah, Woody Guthrie, for those who don't know who he is, one of the most prolific American socialist folk songwriters probably ever. And he famously had a guitar, and he wrote on it, "This machine kills fascists." And so all of his songs were either about directly fighting, he was alive during, World War II. This is how old this guy is, but either directly fighting the fascists, being Hitler, or about working class unity, labor songs, that whole sort of thing. Absolutely wonderful artist, Woody Guthrie. And I'm going to double up here.
Yeah, I'm just through my list because there's one more I'm trying to remember.
And you could put a hell of a lot of his songs on this list, but I don't know if you've heard of this guy, Natalie. He is, in my mind, our generation's Woody Guthrie, or Bob Dylan, our American folk songwriter who writes about all of the terrible, terrible things that we do, and also has very socialist leanings, pro-labor songs. And that is one Jesse Wells. Have you heard of Jesse Wells?
No, but I will make a note of it.
He is wonderful. He actually came up, he came up as a TikToker, is how he got his notoriety. But he has a song called "War Isn't Murder" that is absolutely wonderful, with a lyric that goes something along the lines of, because if war isn't murder, good men don't. Or if war isn't murder, good men don't die. And it's just such a wonderful song. He has a whole catalog that I recommend people look into. But it's that classic American acoustic guitar folk music. But you could put so many of his on here.
That's yeah. I think it's funny when you start peeling back like the layers of people and the impact that music makes, because this is why I think a lot of times fascist regimes always go after artists first, because music's sort of like the universal language,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it grabs people in different ways, but we can all feel things. It evokes emotions in all of us. And even Zach Bryan, who I wouldn't say any of his music is like overtly political, but his one song, it's actually a spoken poem that he says on his album as a poem, and then he does a version of it that's a song. Zach Bryan put out an album, a self-titled album in 23, and his work is really, really good. But Fear and Fridays was the name of the spoken word poem, but it's also a song. That one and Overtime, that's a song. He talks a lot about the working class and being a working class person. And I think that also really speaks to sort of the inherentness of what is good about America is the willingness to roll up our sleeves and make things happen. And so for me, it is an inspirational space. He's also problematic, but aren't most artists. So,
did anything inspire this this call out to Zach Bryan's eponymous album?
Oh,
Zach
that's
Bryan.
so funny! I didn't even see it behind you. Oh, that's so funny.
And also Born in the USA, we got right there.
Oh, that's funny. Look at you. You're ready to roll.
Yes.
You know that album very well. I think he's a great artist. I've loved every single album that he's put out. I love Chris Stapleton too. I think he's so talented as well. And many of his pieces, I think, can be interpreted as Americana, but the underbelly in a lot of ways. But yeah.
Zach Bryan.
Fun exercise. Thanks for doing this.
This is. Do you want to keep rolling through here? Do you got more to say, or are you tapped out?
No, we can keep going. If you don't mind, I'm just looking down because that's like I'm looking at some of my
looking things up.
albums. Yep. Yeah, and there's so many that I see here.
I'm just gonna start listing some off here. But by the way, Zach Bryan, I really hope someone gets to him or something gets to him, because he has it. Like, he just has that
I know.
X factor, that star power, the lyricism, the way he approaches his art is so good, and it would be amazing if he got his politics right.
I know.
Because that type of music with that kind of star power and that kind of musical mind, it could be something. I just hope so.
I agree. I have two more, but they're
Okay.
from the same artist. Janice Ian, who was a big folk singer in the 70s. I discovered her when I was a young girl, and she put out an album in 2022 called The Light at the End of the Line. And the song that I love from that album, Janice Ian, is called Resist. And she also put out an album when I was in high school, I think in like 1999. And one of the songs was called God and the FBI. And it's another great protest song. So they're very folksy, kind of poppy. Once again, if you didn't listen to the lyrics, you would think they were just this nice folksy kind of music. But when you listen to them, you're like, oh shit, like she goes hard. So she's like one of the OGs when it comes to political folk music. And I don't think a lot of people probably know her as much now, but she was a really big deal back in the day. And a fun fact, if you ever watched Mean Girls, the version with Lindsay Lohan, the girl, her friend is called Janice Ian. And I think that's a joke about, because she's like a, kind of an alternative person. And I think it's an homage to that Janice Ian.
That makes a hell of a lot of sense. I don't know if I might have heard these songs, because Janice Ian, that is a name that's coming to my mind.
Her big one.
Did I spell this right, by the way? Do you know?
Yes, you did.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I love
maybe I've heard her. Speaking of just an absolute classic that everyone has heard at some point and definitely deserves to be on this, and I think really does fit because there's so many songs, by the way, that are, because I asked this question on Threads and got a lot of responses, and that there's a lot of very good protest, resistance, pro-labor songs, all that, all good. That's a whole lot. We'll probably make a left-wing playlist at some point. I think that's something that I want to do, and we'll share it with everyone. Yeah. But this I'm specifically looking for that feeling of Americana. That's what point. So like you see Rage Against the Machines over there on that wall. They don't count. Right. That doesn't make. If I heard that on the 4th of July, I'd be like, what the fuck? When did this come on? Like it's just not that same sound. But one that is definitely evokes Americana, War by Edwin Starr.
Of course.
That is the War. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
What's it even good for? And I can't sing, so I will save our audience.
You were going with that. Don't worry.
But that one definitely has to be included on any of these lists. I'm just going to I'm going to just put a couple more of these on there of Cult of Personality, for what should be obvious reasons, given who our current president is. And that is by Living Color. That's right. And I will add one more in there, just going rapid fire here, of Carry On Wayward Son by Kansas. Definitely fits. On My Wayward Son. Honestly, Carry On My Wayward Son and Fortunate Son, there are two songs you could easily get mixed up in your brain if you're not thinking too hard about it.
Listen, I understand that. Yeah, there's just so many good ones, but yeah, I feel like we got a good list here.
Okay, well, let's cut it there then, Natalie. And I will post this. I'll probably post this like right away. And that way, if anyone is watching this later, you want to jump in the comments, you want to add to this, we'll add to the playlist. And I'll try and make a post with making this public.
Real quick, it's
tonight for people tomorrow.
Nikki Guyton, Guyton.
Guyton, my bad.
That's okay. I just noticed it, just in case people want to look her up. It's a good album, but that's an awesome song. Okay,
perfect. Well, that's our first 17. We'll be adding more to this. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. This has been one hell of an episode. We're recording this on the Thursday that the big, beautiful bill was passed. And so you probably just watched a depressing ass video. And if you were able to watch to the very end, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. We got a lot of work cut out ahead of us. One step at a time, people. Let's take our time to lick our wounds, grieve, and make ourselves ready for what's to come.
Amen.
Natalie, people should really know where to find you by now. But if for some reason this is their first episode of The Left Wing and they haven't heard of you before, where can they find you?
I appreciate always being here with you and with TJ. So thanks for the opportunity to be a part of the Left Wing podcast. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Natalie Bensvenga. I actually realized I misspelled my own name. There's only one V in the name.
I was wondering that. I was like, I'm pretty sure there's only ever been one V.
Typing really fast when I got in here. So it is just one V. So it's Natalie.
You got it behind you too.
Yeah, that's true. Timing. So you can go there. I am also on Substack. My newsletter is called Facts Over Fear, but if you just look up my name, Natalie Bensvenga, you can subscribe to me there. Paid subscribers, thank you. I have a few of those now, and I'm always hoping to get more because I'd like to continue to expand that work. And I also have a weekly news roundup with Penn Capital Star, which is a nonprofit newsroom in Pittsburgh, doing the Week in Focus. So you can get, if you're in Pennsylvania, all the quick hits on that news. And I just started a new show for WQED called Destination with Natalie Bensvenga, focused on immigrants that are making the region here in Western Pennsylvania just making their mark, which, my God, talk about accidental timing on that when they moved forward with that series. And with everything going on with immigrants in our communities, it's more important than ever that we highlight the positive impacts that immigrants make by being here. So you can check that out on WQED's YouTube channel, and it's also airing on PBS here in Pittsburgh. So those are just a few of the things I got cooking. I'm still doing the radio from time to time, John, but not as often just because I've been doing so many other projects. But I always love having you guys on when you are able to be with me. But let's do some more lives. This is so much fun and it's cathartic.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Natalie. Highly encourage everyone to go check her out. This is usually the part where TJ takes it over and throws us away and ends the show. Obviously, TJ isn't here today, so I will be doing it. If you missed TJ, make sure to subscribe to The Left Wing so you know when we go live at 6:30 on Tuesday, where he will be back right here. Make sure to catch us then. Until then, have a happy 4th in any way you can. See you later.
Bye, guys.